I have always believed that the truest battles in life are not fought with rifles and commands, but within the quiet chambers of one's own heart. Mine began long after I hung up my uniform and packed away the medals that once glimmered in the light of victory. I'm Samuel Carter, most people in Springfield just call me Sam. 72 years old, 3 Purple Hearts, 1 Bronze Star, and a lifetime of memories that sometimes visit uninvited in the form of dreams. When Clara, my wife of 43 years, passed away from cancer, it was as if the last steady compass in my life had been taken from me. The house we built together in 1985, our little white brick home on Willow Creek Road, suddenly felt too big, too quiet, too full of ghosts. It was my son, Thomas, who suggested I move in with him and his wife, Elaine. "It'll just be for a while, Dad," he'd said, smiling in that salesman way of his. "You shouldn't be alone right now." I wanted to believe him. After all, Thomas was my only child, the one Clara had adored beyond words. I sold my old truck, packed a few boxes of clothes, my marine photo album, and that lockbox Clara once told me to keep for safekeeping. Inside it were our old documents, my military pension statements, and the deed to the house. I told myself I was just being cautious, keeping it close. But maybe, deep down, I already sensed that something wasn't right. Thomas's house sat in one of those new suburban developments, large, polished, and soulless, with manicured lawns and neighbors who waved without really knowing your name. Elaine welcomed me with the kind of smile that never quite reached her eyes. She was always dressed like she was expecting company, her perfume heavy enough to follow her into every room. At first, things were polite. She made breakfast. Thomas asked about my service days. But as weeks turned into months, politeness gave way to small cruelties, tiny cuts that bled slowly. It began with jokes about my forgetfulness, the tremor in my hands, the way I sometimes flinched at sudden noises. "I take medication, sertraline for the anxiety, prazosin for the nightmares," but they laughed when I mixed up my dosage one morning. "Dad, you really think you can handle all that paperwork?" Thomas said one night at dinner, his voice soft but sharp. "Why don't you let me take over the finances? You've earned your rest." It sounded reasonable, and in my grief, I agreed. Within weeks, he had my bank cards, access to my pension deposits, and power over every cent I had worked for. I told myself it was fine. That this was family, and family took care of each other. But family doesn't mock you behind your back. One afternoon, as I sat in the living room sorting through old photographs of Clara, I overheard Elaine's voice from the kitchen. She was on the phone. "Honestly, I don't know how much longer we can keep this up," she whispered. He's confused half the time. "Once we get that house signed over, we'll be set." My hands froze on Clara's picture. My heart didn't. It beat fast, hard, like it had when enemy fire used to crack the air above my head. But instead of fear, I felt something else, something cold and certain. That night, I began documenting everything, every insult, every suspicious charge. Every moment they forgot that old soldiers don't just survive wars, they learn from them. I bought a small digital recorder from the local store and hid it beneath the armchair in the living room. I recorded conversations that dripped with manipulation, Thomas saying, "Dad, you need to start trusting us more. You're not thinking straight anymore." Elaine murmuring, "Maybe the doctor can sign something to declare him unfit, it's for his own good." They didn't know I had allies, people who saw through their act even if they didn't say it aloud. There was Colonel Robert Hayes, my old friend from the Veterans of Foreign Wars post. Bob and I had fought side by side in different battles, but our loyalty never faded. He's the kind of man who still carries himself like the Marine Corps flag flies, just over his shoulder, straight, steady and proud. And then there was Dr. Emily Nguyen, my psychiatrist at the VA hospital. She had spent years helping veterans like me navigate life after war. She never treated me like a broken man. Every session with her was another step toward peace. When I told Dr. Nguyen about Thomas's growing control and his claim that I was slipping, she frowned. "Sam, your test results and evaluations are clear. You're perfectly competent. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Keep documentation of everything. That's your shield." So I did. I began gathering evidence like a soldier mapping the battlefield. My pension statements, proof that I had over $1.5 million saved in my Lockheed Martin account, were safely locked away. My property deed remained untouched in Clara's lockbox. But I noticed letters missing from my mail. Bank envelopes torn open before they reached me. Even my medication bottles were once switched, Elaine claiming the pharmacy had changed the label. Every deception was small enough to deny, but large enough to bruise. Then came the barbecue. It was early June, humid as usual. The neighborhood gathered in the Carter's backyard, and the smell of grilled burgers filled the air. Thomas, in his pressed shirt and salesman grin, played the part of a caring son. "Dad's been through a lot," he told the neighbors, loud enough for everyone to hear. "The PTSD, it's been hard on him. Some days he doesn't even remember what we talked about." I wanted to speak up, but the words caught in my throat. Years of pride, of not wanting to show weakness, pinned me silent. I saw Maria Lopez, my neighbor across the street, a staff sergeant in the Marines, watching quietly from near the lemonade table. Her eyes narrowed when Thomas laughed about how I'd saluted the mailman last week. It wasn't true, but no one corrected him. Weeks passed like a blur of sorrow. The bills mounted, my world narrowed to a hospital room, and through it all, Sophia drifted further away. She claimed stress from work, but I knew. I could feel it. Her heart was no longer with us, and then, one moonlit night, it ended. Lucas slipped away quietly, his hand in mine, his last breath carrying with it all the light in my world. I whispered stories until the very end, about the prairies, the clouds, the endless horizon. His small hand grew still, and in that silence, part of me died too. The funeral was small, held in a modest chapel. Neighbors came, offering heartfelt condolences, their words heavy with sincerity. But the Harringtons stood apart, their eyes full of judgment. Reginald leaned toward Sophia and muttered loud enough for me to hear, "If he had provided better, Lucas might still be alive." Sophia said nothing. She stood there in silence, letting their poison seep into the air. After the service, I clutched Lucas's final sketch. It was unfinished, but beautiful. A prairie scene with our family drawn in simple lines, all of us together beneath a wide sky. I held it to my chest, vowing that no matter what happened, I would never let his memory fade, but grief was not the only weight on my shoulders. Betrayal soon followed. Sophia returned to her routines almost immediately. She stayed late at the resort, came home with vague excuses, her phone buzzing with messages she hid from me. One night, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at bank statements. Charges appeared that I couldn't explain, lavish dinners, flights, luxury hotels. When I confronted her, she brushed it off. "Business expenses, Elias. Don't start." Doubt gnawed at me until I searched deeper. On her social media, there it was, a photo of Sophia, smiling on a beach in Orlando, her arm linked with Victor Langford, a tech investor known around town. The caption read, "New horizons and joy." I can't describe the feeling that surged through me then. It was more than anger, more than sorrow. It was betrayal sharpened into something cold and enduring. When I came home the next evening, divorce papers lay on the table. Her note was brief, almost casual, it's over, Elias. Sorry, the Harringtons, of course, reveled in my downfall. When I went to confront them at their mansion, Reginald laughed in my face. Pathetic has-been. Did you really think you were ever worthy of my daughter? Evelyn sneered, telling me to vacate their property. Marcus leaned against the wall, smirking, his voice dripping with contempt. You're nothing, Elias. Always have been. I walked away that night with a fire burning in my chest. 4 years, I had endured their scorn, hidden my strength for the sake of peace. But as I packed my things, gathering Lucas's mementos and moving into a modest apartment, I made a silent promise. They had taken everything from me, or so they thought. They had no idea what I had built in the shadows, and they would soon learn what it may. Memorial Day arrived bright and clear. I stood at the edge of Main Street in my marine blues, medals shining against the morning sun. The mayor called my name, Grand Marshal Samuel Carter, and for the first time in years, I felt Clara's pride beside me. Thomas and Elaine stood nearby, smiling for cameras, pretending to be the devoted family. But when I stepped to the microphone, the smile faded from their faces. Calmly, I spoke the truth. I told the crowd how they had used my illness, my age, and my trust for greed. Then I played the recordings. Thomas mocking my PTSD, Elaine plotting the sale of my home. Silence fell. Then applause rose like thunder. Bob handed the lawyer's documents to the sheriff. Maria saluted from the crowd. Justice came swiftly, but what mattered most was the peace that followed. Today, I live quietly in my home again, surrounded by neighbors who call me Grandpa Sam. I no longer fight ghosts, I honor memories.